Hi, I'm Daniel Metler from 2sxc Internet Solutions, and in this short video I'd like to show you how to work with CSV data. That's a text file containing comma-separated values or semicolon or tabs, but it's a very simple data format to exchange data. And there are many reasons why you'd want to visualize this. For example, very often we have scenarios where our customers have a catalog system and they would like to push a CSV file to the web server. Other cases are where the customer has an ERP and all the addresses of their sales places, locations are in an ERP, their partners are there, and they'd like to create a Google map out of that data. And so they'd like to give us a CSV and just have it work. Other common scenarios are, of course, just data the customer edits in Excel, and that's what we want to do. We want to make it very simple so that normal web designers can change the design. So we're going to focus on tokens this time, but you can use the same principle for JavaScript-based templates or Razor-based templates. So let's just get started. What I've got prepared here is an empty DNN page. Let's just switch over to the browser. It didn't quite work properly here. Let's just interrupt the presentation to get that to work. And I'm going to add a new app module. I will just create a new app for this because it's the best and easiest way of doing it. Now, if you don't know what I just did here, make sure you install 2sxc and then get started. We're going to create a completely new app so that you can then download it later on and give it a try yourself. And I'm going to call this the CSV Data Tutorial. And of course, this app is currently still pretty empty. I'm going to go into the Manage section of this app, and I'm going to say I would like to create a new query. And you may wonder where my data is going to come from, but what I did is I went to just research some CSV data, and I found some WHO data about tuberculosis. So I'm going to call my data here WHO TB. And the file that I downloaded, let me just show you this quickly, is lying inside a folder in my portal called CSV. And this is the name of the file. So we're going to have to refer to this afterwards. So let's get started and say we're going to create a query which will get the file and deliver it to the template. If we create a new query, normally it contains things like get existing content. We don't want that. Make sure only the published data is shown to end users. Or I'm just going to remove these data sources, and I'll go over and say I'm going to add a CSV data source. That's this one. And I will just wire it up right now to go directly to the default output. So the data at the bottom, we're going to give this a name, double click, and WHO data is just going to be streamed to there. Now, of course, it needs to know which file and how to separate the fields. So let's just click on here and say the file path is portals 0 CSV and the file name. We have a comma, and the title column should be country. It's pretty simple. So let's just give it a test drive and hit query. And basically, it should retrieve all that data now, create a data model in memory, and deliver it ready for the template. If it feels like it takes long, this is actually just because I'm debugging this thing. You'll see that the query itself only took about 1/4 of a second. But because it was sending all the data to my browser to show to me, it took a bit longer. Now, 1/4 of a second may feel like it's okay. See, it found 5,000 records. But to me, it's too much. So let's go ahead and add caching as well, because caching will be just the way we want to go. I mean, 1/4 of a second for every request for reading 5,000 records feels okay, but if we have a bit of a load here, it just doesn't turn out to be cool anymore. So let's try that and say, okay, we're going to cache, and it's going to come in as default, it's going to be passed on as default. So actually, all I had to do is add that box. Now, there's one special thing. Normally, the cache will ask the upstream data, this one here, did your data change? Which would force us to read the file just to see if it changed. We don't want to do that. In most common scenarios, that's fine, but with external data, we just don't want to do that. So we're going to change this thing here to say no, do not check if the source refreshed, and say false. And we're just going to cache the data for an entire day because it's not going to change much. Let's run the same query again. And what we should see now, it still takes long because it's delivering all the data through HTTP to show me on this browser. But the query itself, this time it still took about 200 milliseconds. And if I run it again, it should probably drop down to about 1 millisecond or something like that, because it's now all coming from memory. So this is a very efficient way of getting things done. You see, query execution time 0. Now, what I'm not going to show you now is we could of course now add some kind of filters, sorting, paging, things like that. But just to keep the tutorial short, I'm going to skip that. So we created the query now, and we're now going to create a template to show it. So I'm going to say new template, WHO CSV tokens, and we're going to say just create a new template here. And I'm not going to give it any content type or anything because this data is coming from a query, and I just forgot to tell it that. So down here I have to say don't use the default pipeline, which would be the data that was edited here, but use the one we just created, the WHO TB. When you're going to run this on your system, by the way, remember that the CSV file was not included. So go ahead, download it, and remap the path just to be sure it's in the same place, and then try it. So we created the view, we created the query. So let's go back to the page and say this is what we want to use. Let's select the app we just created. And there's only one template, so it's going to choose this. And this is a very unexciting default text. Now, let's just quickly edit something here and say, okay, this is H2, this is W. And let's just run a very simple unordered list. And inside here, we're going to have a list item containing the country and the year. Now, of course, this isn't going to quite work yet, right? It doesn't know where the data is coming from. So let's add a repeater here. If you want to know more about repeaters, go check it out in the tutorial, but don't worry about it. This is just a simple token repeater. So we're almost there. Now we're saying we have a token. We're going to call this TB country and TB year. And this should more or less do it. I hope I didn't make any typos. Let's see what happens. I see Afghanistan is a lot in here with different years, Albania, etc. And that's it. This page is going to reload now very, very quickly. The only delay we have is really transporting this data and rendering the template, which could be cached too. So this is a very super fast, efficient way of doing it, and you can leverage to do anything you want. So let's continue on this slide we had to cancel before. And as you see, it wasn't such a big deal. In a future video, I'd like to show you how to use CSV data in in AngularJS or in Knockout.js, because that too is very easy to do. Go ahead and download the app from the app catalog if you want to reach me. I'm the CEO of 2sxc Internet Solutions, and I'm on Twitter as well. And if you want to read more such or watch more such tutorials, read my blogs, it's best to subscribe to the newsletter because I post in so many different places in GitHub and in various blogs that you'd never get the entire cake if you don't have the newsletter. So, hope to hear from you again. Subscribe and have fun. Daniel Mettler, 2sxc Internet Solutions. Thank you for watching.